YouTube, we got us a fun day for Randomizer. Got survival into something involving corrupted vor and memes, presumably. Let's get going with the Randomizer here. Load options, randomize, see what we get. Fun stuff. So first of all, I guess the elephant in the room has to be this Kitgun here, right? Now this is, in fact, I should probably show off exactly how I'm running this. This is a Rattleguts status Kitgun. It's pretty fun. What we're working with here is a gun that I tried to set up to have stats reasonably similar to something like an Stiletto Prime, right? Where it's firing rapidly, it has moderate critical chance, and it has close to 100% status chance when fully modded. Now this thing probably needs one more formula because Auger Pact really is not ideal there. We would probably want to be slapping in something like the primed heated charge, or maybe, I don't even know. There's a lot of potential options, maybe more fire rate, something like that. There's got to be something better than just a half-leveled Auger Pact. But regardless, rest of this build is kind of the generic thing you see me run on a ton of my pistols, so I shouldn't really have to explain it. But we got Hornet Strike, double multi-shot mods, this for more fire rate, which is pretty crucial. Lethal Torrent for more fire rate on this fully automatic weapon with a huge magazine. And then we got corrosive and status mods here, getting our status chance up towards the high 90%. And then we've got Target Cracker and Pistol Gambit. Because this is the Rattleguts, this is one of the only kit guns that actually has any slash damage on it, which is why I wanted to try out a status build on specifically a Rattleguts. The other ones, I'm not really sure that status is that valuable, except for potentially the Gaze, the beam weapon. But even so, we only went into one tick of status into this weapon as opposed to two, so this weapon still has enough of a base crit chance. As you can see here, we're still sitting at 15% crit. That's enough to make it reasonable to slap in a couple crit mods. I definitely wouldn't want to put a third mod towards crit, though. This is definitely very much a hybrid build. The other thing I want to mention about it is just that it's a fun kit gun. Also, it's a reference to Spaceballs, in case you weren't aware. Alright, so, anyways, beyond that, we're going with Volt today. And I don't know if I've shown off how Volt works before. Now, my Volt, I've got multiple different builds, although this is kind of just a junk build. To take this with a grain of salt, I'm kind of just doing something generic with Transistor Shield. So what we're going with here, in this build that I'm running today, which I'm going to do this primary build here. I guess I should be talking about this sucker at the front. This is Capacitance build. And you might be noticing that I'm a little bit short on defensive mods here. We're only running Quick Thinking and Prime Flow. But the idea here is that Capacitance is going to allow us to use Discharge on enemies, shock the snot out of them, keep them crowd controlled, and all the damage that's being dealt converts back into shields for us. So we're going to always have 1600 plus shields, and the shields are going to be regenerating at a massive speed. Typically, as long as we just cast Discharge, shields should keep coming back up at a rate of 100 to 200 a second, at least. Now, how are we going to accomplish that? Well, like I said, we're going to have good Discharge. So we've got the Prime Flow here to spam abilities a lot. We've got Streamline and Fleet Expertise, 170 efficiency, so we can keep on casting that ult as frequently as possible. And then we're going to hit Overextended here to make sure that the arcs of lightning from the electrified enemies are able to arc back and forth between enemies in as wide of a range as possible. Now, the remaining mods here, we've got Intensified to somewhat make up for a little bit of the minus ability strength. We've got Prime Continuity to make up for a bit of the minus ability duration, which this is particularly important since negative ability duration means that the enemies don't stay shocked for very long. And the ability, Discharge is already an ability that doesn't necessarily retain its crowd control for a long duration. It's only got about a 10-second base on it, so getting extra duration is pretty important there. And finally, we got Handspring just to make sure that we don't get CC'd and knocked down, since ultimately this isn't a super tanky build. We're getting a lot of shielding fast, and we have a massive energy capacity since Volt Prime has something like 200 base energy, so there's 850 after the Prime Flow. But by the same token, not necessarily that much of a tank. Now, obviously, a lot of people play Volt for high movement speed. This is how I recommend playing that. Narrow-minded for tons of duration, and use Stretch to negate some of the narrow-minded minus range that you can give the buff to your allies. Tons of sprint speed there, and tons of power strength. And like I said, this build's kind of crap, but we're not going to worry about that. So guess what I want to show off there? That was a bit of a misclick. I want to show off the stats in this build. So discharge is dealing a total of 840 damage, keeps enemies stunned for about 7 seconds, and it has a radius of 38 meters that primes enemies, but more importantly, enemies can arc to enemies within 15 meters, and that's the point of the overextended there, is that we want the enemies to be arcing to other enemies and shocking them within about 15 meters. Now, the other way that you could set this build up would be to take off the overextended and intensify, and instead swap that out for something along the lines of stretch plus augur reach. So instead of dropping 60% ability strength and then feeding that back in, you're just gaining a bunch of ability range off of 2 base mods. Now, the reason why I don't have that here, and it should be pretty obvious, is that it just has to do with the polarities that I put in here. As you can see, this build is pretty... this build is what the Forma and the Myvolt are for. This build is the reason why I have all these D polarities and all these B polarities, because of all the really expensive corrupted mods on my speed build. And because of that, I've had to kind of compromise here. Now, like I said, if you were going with augur reach and stretch, you'd be at a full 100% strength. It'd be down to about 175 range. So that build is typically a bit more effective overall, but I don't feel like... I mean, there's a ton of extra capacity here, so I guess we could try overriding that stuff. Let me see. Just for the fun of it, I'm going to take a look at that and see how that works for stats. Can that work with 2 mods put into the wrong polarities? Yeah, it works exactly. I would not call that optimal by any means. But, I mean, it works, I guess? Wow, that is embarrassing. That actually is probably better stats than the build I was running. Regardless. I'm used to playing this with Intensify Overextended, so we're going to run that today. That's what I'm used to in terms of stats. Where did OX end up? Ah, there it is. Okay. Either or, it's really kind of academic at that point. Like I said, the big thing that you want is you want the enemies to be able to arc to other enemies within a wide radius around them, so that the instant that you cast the ult, you start generating shields very quickly. As you can see, the other abilities here, by the way, the speed multiplier on speed is not particularly good, but hey, at least you can prime any ally anywhere on the map. Shock links to enemies in a huge radius, but it deals practically no damage. And Electric Shield is actually pretty decent in this build. You can spawn an Electric Shield, hold it, keep it going for quite a while, because there's pretty decent efficiency there. So, anyways, other weapons that we have going here. We have a Gram rather than a Gram Prime. Only reason why I don't have a Gram Prime, the only reason why I still have a Gram, rather, is because I don't have a Gram Prime. This is one of my least favorite heavy melees, as evidenced by the rather outdated build on it. Let's fiddle with that just a little bit. I guess I'll stick with the Berserker there, just because I don't really have a lot of capacity left over, but I really want to get that Blood Rush on instead. Let's go ahead and just grab an unranked copy of Life Strike instead of that maxed out one. That should be fine. As you can see, it's not particularly good build here. We're going Blood Rush, Drifting Contact, just because I swapped it to that. The Gram is not really a monster of a weapon. In terms of its raw stats, it's lagging far behind some of the other heavy melees. The Gram Prime, on the other hand, is power creep at its finest. In exchange for having a terrible attack speed on the Gram Prime, you're getting 35% crit chance and 35% status chance, and still 180 or something base damage. It's very much an unbalanced weapon that needs to be nerfed somewhat. If they took the Gram Prime and dropped probably the crit stats on it down a little bit and gave it more attack speed back, that would be a lot better. Anyways, but there's the Gram. We're going to rely a lot on the Kitgun, and we're going to rely a lot on this Tigris. Now, this isn't the Tigris Prime. This is the Sancti Tigris, and as you can see, even with 4 dual stat mods, we're just shy of 100% status chance. And as you know, with shotguns, because of pellet count, that actually is a little more severe than it looks in terms of missing status there. As you can see, when you drop off the multi-shot mod, dropping the pellet count down from 8 down to about 4 shows that the individual pellets actually aren't having anywhere near 100% status chance on each of them. It looks like it's probably closer to 75% status chance per pellet, and we're just getting 99 whatever because of how many shots are coming out of the barrel. So obviously there's some math you can do there in terms of exponentiation, but really what needs to happen is this number needs to be the status chance per pellet, just like this number here is the critical chance per each pellet. There really is no excuse for Digital Extremes to show this number as an agglomeration of all the stuff coming out of the barrel, since there's an obvious way that you can show it naturally and make it easy to understand what's going on, and that is with the crit chance. The same way that crit chance is being displayed for shotguns, I mean. Anyways, what we've got going on here is basically still just a generic Tigris build. The Sancti Tigris is not as much of a monster as the Tigris Prime, but it is still a pretty scary, powerful weapon. We're still getting over 75% chance to proc a status per pellet, and we're going with slash viral radiation as the priority status effects that this is putting out. So we're still able to punch through enemies, plus Sancti Tigris has the new Locapuri effect, which is going to restore health and give us some AoE corrosive. The AoE corrosive is probably going to be the more important thing this mission, since Volt is primarily a shield tank. Damage, multi-shot, 4 dual stats with plenty of status chance there, slash damage, and Stinking Fury, reload speed, punch through. Obviously, in my opinion, there's 2 other good options to slap in to that place. You could either go with Chilling Reload to get the vital percentage up and get even more reload speed, or you could go with Blaze to get more raw damage out of the build, since Blaze will give you the most raw damage of any other mod you can slap into this. Stinking Fury for the punch through here, just because the Tigris has some troubles clearing multiple enemies at once, so punch through helps that somewhat. Oh, and finally, of course, we have my Speed Cavat. I've shown off the behinds. I've shown off my behind a lot here. Like I said, important things: Hunter recovery, so the Cavat can heal me. Charm for the buffs here. Fetch for loot radar. Animal instinct. The rest of this is pretty much all just generic stuff. Oh, and of course Sharpened Claws, because we have to shred armor. That's the #1 reason to use Cavats, just about. It is the fact that Cavats not only have their crit buffs, but they also can be allowing you to passively scale up into high-level content. So I believe I already had Xenoric equipped, because the last Warframe I was using was Revenant, so we should be able to just hop right into this. Should be pretty fantastic. Big thing I'm worried about here is because it's an Eximus Stronghold, and because... oh god, it's tier 4 Eximus Stronghold too. See, the tier 4 section of the Void still has triple damage grandfathered over from years and years ago. I really feel like they need to remove that, because it's going to be a bit of a pain for the enemies here. So the big issues are going to be that the enemies are dealing more damage than this build is accustomed to taking, and that we might be running low on energy just because of the fact that it's an Eximus Stronghold. Now, because it's survival, I'm actually going to let the see how slow that swings too without Berserker going. And that's the main reason why I actually don't think the Grand Prime is very balanced, is because it has a much slower swing speed than even that, and even with a Prime Fury, your base swing speed is going to be terrible on the Grand Prime. With that said, the stats on the G Prime are disgustingly good, so, you know, people are still going to refer to it as a crazy weapon anyway. Like I said, I'm just letting the energy tick up, just to make sure I'm at 800 energy, since I'm sure I'm going to take some hits to quick thinking at some point. Anyway, so yeah, the Grand Prime. The big issue with the Grand Prime is that because this Gram here, as you can see, is kind of a terrible weapon. It's got low status, low crit, low attack speed, and mediocre base damage. And by low, I mean moderate, but still not good. Not like anything like the Galatine Prime, for example, or a lot of other heavy weapons out there, Skindos, you know. The big reason why the Grand Prime is disgustingly powerful is because it still has a crazy ribbon disposition, right? And what you need to get on that ribbon is you need to get a ribbon that has bonus attack speeds, that you can stack that with Prime Fury and get a Grand Prime that suddenly has crazy stats and is able to swing very quickly because of stacking multiple high attack speed mods, since it has, you know, you might be able to get a ribbon that has a huge amount of attack speed on it. I think the dispo on that ribbon is still... it's like 4-star or something like that, so something like 1.20 in comparison to base stats. Pretty crazy. Anyways, so that's why the Grand Prime is kind of breaking the meta right now. Digital Extremes, if you're listening to this, reduce the Gram's ribbon disposition the next time that you do a ribbon pass. Not that I know why DE would be listening to some random weekly cast, but you know what? We're not going to worry about that. I'll assume that someday I get rich and famous, and that people pay attention to my YouTube channel. Fire this off. As you can see there, that's the arcs of damage coming in immediately from the huge amount of power range that we have. Also able to prime a large radius. Big thing I'm just trying to do here is I'm just trying to stay alive. I'm not really going to worry about showing off this build or trying to be doing anything out of the ordinary. I'm just going to try and keep the Warframe alive, keep the life support coming. So I'm going to play pretty passively and defensively here, and because of that, I'm actually going to swap to expending some of the ammunition here on my Kitgun. Something that people aren't really aware of, or rather, something that not everybody's aware of when they first look at the Kitguns, is the fact that the Rattleguts chamber actually is hit scan, even though it's got what looks like laser projectiles coming out of it. Which is kind of odd, but hey, I call it a benefit because it means that I can use this as a mid-range sniping weapon, since it's also a highly accurate pistol.
Life support incoming.
As you can see there, this is proccing a lot of different status effects. That enemy right there, just in that short burst of 3 or 4 shots, how I had both slash and corrosive procced on him. That's kind of the benefit of going with this hybrid build, is it deals a moderate amount of damage per shot, so you should expect maybe a 5 to 10 shot kill on most enemies, but you're getting, at the same time, you're getting a procs of a lot of different status effects, so you're able to cut through things like armor pretty rapidly.
Capsule is now available.
Let's go ahead and set up, I'm okay with this camping here. Let's go ahead and set up our electric shield just to make sure that we can do that, and I'm going to keep on shooting out the energy leeches as best I can whenever I notice that my energy is getting drained. We're going to eventually have to pop this life support capsule. As you can see, we're kind of losing a bit of support, life support in the air there. Big thing I'm really worried about here actually is that we might be stunning the enemies a little too frequently, making it difficult for them to get into range for us to shoot. You know what, that's okay. Alright, shock the enemies, res the cat. I am actually very interested in keeping the cat up just because of the fetch mod, just so I keep on picking up life support as soon as it spawns in. That is, in my opinion, the most important function of the companion, this kind of mission. I hear a nullifier, so we better deal with him as soon as I see him. Where'd he go? There he is. He is around here somewhere. It's in nowhere. There's that mid-range coming in off the Kitgun. That's a good one. I guess I should show off the Tigris a little bit more. As you can see, the Sancti Tigris is still able to burst down enemies very effectively. Oh, come on, cat. Why are you not rotating up here with me? My cat's an idiot. Look at that, Venom X off me. Stop ticking down my health. Very awkward. Alright, well, we'll just hop down here and revive him again. Oh god. Coming out of the stun! Alright, there's the shields coming back up. Plenty of shields there. Is that? That's not really getting my operator shields. See, the big issue here that I was that's kind of the problem, that's making the cat so squishy, is that cats don't really have any way to scale off a Warframe whose only defensive mods are a augment and quick thinking. I don't have very good stats at base for the cat to inherit, since I'm not equipping actual redirection on this. So by logic, the cat also has terrible stats. And the cat keeps on going down and fighting enemies, but you know what, that's okay. Let's go ahead and pop this capsule and swap over to the other side. Like over here, for example. Cat! Stop being a moron. I really need to actually cut through some of these Arctics. They're doing a really good job of defending enemies around them and making it difficult for my Tigris to go through things. That's really the big downside to a weapon like the Tigris too, is that it kills any one enemy pretty effectively, but when it comes to big groups like that, it just kind of struggles a bit. Ah, god, gotta get back behind the electric shields here, as I can. No, I was trying to proximity Rick, thank you! Cha! Wah! Cha! Gotta abuse that duplex silos every time you can. Get a good shot off of the trigger down and a good shot off the trigger up whenever possible. Spawn one of these here, spawn one of these here. Revive the cat. The third time, I believe. Oh god. Oh, he hurts. I can't just sit there and face tank that. He hurts. There's that purity proc, or whatever it's called. Increases my base health by a little bit, which makes the tank cat very temporarily more tanky. Alright, there's the Kitgun again. Can also fire through these electric shields. I'm not really super enthusiastic about that sort of thing, since this isn't a really hugely crit reliant weapon, but I mean, firing through the electric shields will always give your weapons more electric damage and more crit damage, both of which are useful for increasing your damage output, so it's always worth getting. Ooh, crit buff, nice. Kitty critics, gotta love them. They're taking huge ticks of 0 over here. There's some kind of anti-elemental Eximus there that's stopping that from. There it was, it's a shock Eximus. Stopping that from dealing any damage whatsoever. Bit annoying and awkward. That energy leech off of me. This is gonna be doable. It's not been easy by any means, but I mean it's been doable. Mostly the crowd control keeping the enemies weakened, and these weapons being pretty reasonable, particularly my custom Kitgun there. That electric shield up. Keep them from being able to get an easy aim to shoot at me. I'm essentially just running to a capsule and then camping on that capsule until I feel like it's time to pop it. Which, to be fair, I feel like it's kind of time to pop this. Let's get to the next room. A little bit of extra speed. Nothing really out of the ordinary, but as you can see here, even without huge amounts of power strength, it's still at least helpful for getting a bit of move speed to get to the next room. Can't really complain. Let's go ahead and pop this too. Save those 2 orbs since we're on a prime Warframe. We can absolutely use those as a burst of energy when needed. We'll go ahead and let the Tigris prep its next burst of damage. Holy cow. That Ancient is eating all the status procs there. As you can see here, this is the big downside to running a status-focused build, is the fact that those Eximus Ancients, ow, don't exactly take very much damage. I can absorb all the damage you'd be dealing to other units. I think I just added 500 energy to my energy pool like a fool. Oh well. Could be worse. Actually, a really nice function of speed on this build is to give us faster reloads on our Tigris, which is pretty nice. Volt was the first Warframe I was playing on this particular account, so I do have a bit of a soft spot for him. It's just, the thing about Volt, right, is that as far as an initial Warframe, he's not necessarily the best at taking on high-level content, but he is the best at, oh god, he is the best Warframe in terms of being able to alter the logistics of missions, right, where you can have speed and whatnot to be able to, wow, I'm just having trouble spamming that. He's able to actually give you the speed to be able to absolutely cheese some of those grindable missions, and that's interesting because it actually gives you a different way to play the game and to kind of game the system somewhat. You're actually playing the meta game as opposed to just playing Mr. Runny Shooty Warframe Looty Man, which is kind of interesting. I do recommend grabbing something like Volt for your first Warframe, just because of that exact fact.
Prepare for life support.
How much damage does our Grand Prime deal? Or not our Grand Prime, just our Grand. Here's a demonstration. It's not terrible, but the time to kill is pretty bad. So, not really my preferred heavy melee weapon. When you compare it to something like the Galaxy Prime, oh god, let's dive into this bubble. Kill him, put this up, let you kill the enemies, and grab back the cat for the last minute of the mission. Surely this sucker will be able to live at least 30 seconds, right? Hopefully.
Life support has arrived.
Yeah. Bit awkward. Anyways. Not a lot more commentary to give here. I guess what I'm going to do is I'm going to just pop one of these air capsules just to make sure that we're not in any danger whatsoever. Thank you, cat, for drawing a bit of aggro there.
Life support activated.
Not that that cat can actually face tank that aggro very long, but you know what? We'll go with it. Okay, so I'm assuming that the exit's through one of the pathways that's leading out of that room. I'm gonna guess it's this one. Yeah, we're not worried. Yes, I guessed correctly. Okay. Usually that second room full of life support leads directly to the exit. If there's a third room with life support, that's often a different angle. That's just how the maps are put together. I don't know exactly why that decision is made the way it is, but it is. Anyways, so that's a capacitance full. That's set up for crowd control and some survivability there. hope you enjoyed watching this. That's going to be the weekly randomizer. Pretty simple, but not really that stressful of a mission. Survival usually isn't too stressful. That's going to be all. Herp derp out.